So, a very good evening to everybody and a very warm welcome to the Lyceum evening, coming to you from the Paul Christian Spiritualist Church down on the south coast of the UK. Tonight's guest needs no introduction, so I'm not going to bother. But we have the wonderful Mark Stone. Mark, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Laurie. It's lovely to be here as always. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and always a pleasure. We're going to be talking tonight about development on your mediumship, on your healing, or whichever way your link with the spirit world goes. So please bring those questions in. I will remind people later, but we're here and your questions are important. I always say there isn't such a thing as a daft question.
No, not at all. Because we all have questions. We've all probably asked the same question as you're feeling daft about asking, and actually sometimes just different perspectives are really, really useful. And there's nothing wrong. Sometimes people in courses go, "Oh, I didn't want to ask in front of the group because it was too simple a question or it's too basic a question." And I said, well, actually, probably there were a number of people in the room thinking the same thing. So the very fact that asking a question allows you to open up knowledge for everyone, and there's nothing wrong in asking. Sometimes some questions are way off remit, when it comes to if you're in a workshop and, you're in a workshop on healing and then someone wants to ask you about evidential platform, whatever, or universal consciousness in a way that doesn't relate. So when I do that in work, when that happens in a workshop, I say, let's talk about that during a lunch break or during a coffee break or at the end of the day, so that we don't take the time away. But when we have evenings like this, and opportunities for questions and answers in churches or circles, always ask the questions that you've been wanting to ask. Again, with all teaching in mediumship, healing, trance, any aspect of teaching throughout the whole of the world, everybody has a level of their own opinion through their own experience. And so, especially with mediumship, just because someone does mediumship, it doesn't mean that the way they do it is the way that you as a student would do it. And a technique or a method that someone says, oh, if you do this, you'll be able to do a perfect message, or you'll be able to blend in a certain way. That's how it works for them. It doesn't always mean it's going to work that way for you as an individual. It might be the very opposite of the way that you work. It may be the very, a very different or an uncomfortable way of working for you. So, you can try other people's methods, techniques, ways of working and be open to trying, but then find what works for you, refine it to your method.
Indeed, and we talk about the individuality within mediumship, and then we'll go and sign up on courses so we can copy somebody famous. It's like,
although I think I hear that. I think there's a nice thing about aspiration and inspiration. When it comes to mediumship, and there is, and if you like the way someone works, if you enjoy the way someone works, then being able to see how they come to that place and spending time with that person, whether it's on a workshop or a seminar or multiple seminars, allows you to see it from their perspective and see it from their way of working. And we always used to giggle and laugh at the college that you could tell if you saw a medium outside of the college. So if you saw a medium at your local church, you could almost tell which mentor they'd studied with, because there would be a natural element of mimicking, not always deliberately, but just by the very nature. So, we could see if someone had sort of sat with, say, Tony Startwell, or we could see when someone was with Glyn. Every time I used to do things after working with Glyn for a period of time, I'd keep doing, I'm doing a Glynism. I'm saying or doing something very much in the style of Glyn, because you kind of, when you're in that energy with other mediums, you kind of blend and absorb and learn from and you do end up, mimicking through kind of association. And again, you when you're listening how to structure, say, a message, the phrases people use, the way that people put it, again, when you're hearing someone else do it, you'll take that on board yourself. So I think the thing is, have your heroes and heroines of mediumship, that you love and adore, but don't place yourself in comparison to them.
Yeah.
Don't put them up on a pedestal and you way down below them. Always feel that they are the aspiration, they're the inspiration, but you're not going to try and copy them and be them. But you're going to allow their example to inspire you, and that way you're not setting yourself up to lose, or setting yourself up to be in a sense of competition with other people. Because I think that one of the biggest things that we see that happens in different places, and I experienced this a lot, was rather than actually being happy for the success of other people. And I notice Arish has asked a lovely question here about judgment. Rather than being happy for someone else's work and success, it tends to become very judgmental. And interestingly enough, you get a lot of judgment from people sat in a congregation who don't actually put themselves on a platform to work themselves. So I would be sitting in I'd be sitting in congregations and hearing people going, "Oh, that's just psychic. That's just this. That's just." I'm thinking, how would you know? How do you definitely know that's how that medium is working, unless you are able to see the auric field and how they're blending? Are they blending and connecting to spirit, or are they blending directly with someone in the congregation? If you can see that through the perception in your awareness. But I used to find it fascinating when people would do that, but then not demonstrate themselves when they had the capability. And I always wonder if you become hypercritical and hyperjudgmental, does it start to become a barrier to your own mediumship? Because you're thinking, well, if I'm sat in the congregation giving everybody a critique, is everyone going to do that to me?
Yeah.
And we know, all mediums know, that when we go up on a platform, no matter how much we want to put aside worrying about getting it right and what will other people think, there is always going to be an element of that, because we're standing up in front of people in public. There's always going to be an element of awareness of other people's attitudes, energy, mentality. Sometimes the worst people are the people we expect it from the least. And we are our own, let's face it, we're our own worst judge and jury, and prison warder and executioner. We will give ourselves an incredibly hard time. So therefore, if we can start to celebrate more what's around us, there's nothing wrong with observing. And if someone's asking you what you think, and you can be observational and explain why you've come to that decision, then that may be useful. Because I always say to people, watch a medium work and think about what made it a good demonstration, what made it a good philosophical address, what made it good, what did they do, how did they work, and be aware of the dynamics of all of it. Some people are very entertaining, and people go, "Oh, it was such a fun night," but then can't remember how accurate the evidence may have been or not, but they enjoyed the evening. Other people might have incredible evidence, but be very quiet, and people are a bit like, "Oh, it felt like it was a bit slow going." But it may have had a lot of evidence in it, a lot of information. It may have been felt much more intimate and quiet and low energy. But it doesn't make it any less or worse a demonstration. It's just different. And as we know in the movement a bit, some people are wanting to be entertained rather than understanding the dynamics of why communication is there, why the service is there. Not just about Granny lives on, but actually the wider implications of spiritualism, which again, as students of mediumship and of healing, we hopefully want to try and get people to see beyond just giving messages, but to all the other facets of mediumship and awareness and philosophy and teaching and application of those things.
Definitely. And hi, Risha. Because Risha's asked there, good evening. Do you think there's a lot of judgment as how a medium should work? There's other levels of that as well, isn't it? Number one, did anybody ask you for your opinion? Or have you just flounced in and gone, well, that was crap?
But also, actually, I'm rereading that, how a medium should work. So there's a very interesting thing within that, because I was thinking about judgment in spiritualism and upon mediumship, but actually how a medium should work. There is a lot of, depending on the forum and depending on what you're doing, there's a lot to that, because there's a great difference between demonstrating on a platform and giving a private sitting. The structure, the form, the depth, the intimacy of information, the way information comes through can be very, very different in a private sitting to what you would present in a public platform. The location of where you're demonstrating your mediumship, if you're in a public space rather than a church, you may be able to be a little bit more lax and a little bit more go easy and do things in a different way, and it be a bit more jovial in a way, although mediumship doesn't have to be dry and boring or solemn or austere. But obviously, depending on if you're in particular churches, certain churches expect certain behavior, certain decorum, certain ways of working. They may, I've been in several churches where there is a list of rules on the back of the door that you all sit in, and it tells you you're not allowed to do this, say this, don't do this, don't do that, don't leave the platform, don't do this, don't do that. And you just sort of look at that and go, oh, okay, well, what can I do? There are, but again, within that, always be respectful of the place that you're in. If there's something that you do differently, and you say to the chairperson, is it okay if I do this? If they say, well, we'd rather you didn't, then okay, then rather you didn't. Because bear in mind, although you're the medium, you are on their platform. Some people, I can always remember Glyn in his demonstrating style, would forever walk off the platform at the college and wander down the aisle, and leaning on people and turning his back to the congregation and talking to a weeping fig. What are you trying to tell me? Breaking all the rules of project out to the front. But it didn't matter. That was him, and that was the way he worked, and that was it. Other people, I'm sure, will have had great comments and judgments on it. But again, it depends on context and setting, and being aware of where you are and what you're doing. And I think that's a whole thing that you've got. There's for me, a big part of development should be looking at the philosophies, the prayers, the readings, the address, should be looking at etiquette, should be looking at the whole of service, not just doing demonstrations of mediumship. There are, as you know, over the years, Lawrence, there are people who say, oh, well, I'd like to come to the church and be a demonstrating medium. And you say, okay, well, if you come on a Sunday, we have a divine. Oh, I don't do divine services.
Yeah.
I don't do philosophy. I don't do readings. I don't do prayers. That's fine. But then maybe the church circuit isn't the place for you to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Because the big thing for me, old-fashioned me as I am, is it's service to spirit and to the churches, and therefore if we're serving, we need to have the be in the round. Unless you're working with a partner and they do the philosophy and the address and you do the mediumship, otherwise we need to be well rounded in all of the disciplines, being up on a church platform, I believe personally.
I do. I always emphasize that. And just as a footnote, this is a very common topic, people talking about other people's mediumship. I always say the only person who can give a verdict on a message is the recipient.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the only ones who can say, I said something to somebody once and it was hard going. And I'm like, that's fine, that's okay. And then I literally just said one phrase and the bloke went, that's it, that's all I want to hear, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
We judge,
and we can't judge mediumship from within the experience of doing it at the time. So you may know that you could be doing better in a demonstration or in a private sitting, but actually it may be the best sitting that person's ever had, but we're judging. So here's judgment still. We're judging what we think is a good reading or what is good in our mediumship or what constitutes high level of accuracy or evidence, where something that may be insignificant to us almost missed in our communication. When you said about that one phrase or one word, I can remember doing a sitting only when I was in my teens with a lady, and I was doing it in her kitchen. She was very kindly looking after some plants for me when we hadn't got anywhere to live, and we took all my plants into her garden. And she said, would you be willing to do a sitting? And I thought, well, considering you're going to be watering my plants for ages, I think that's fair. And we did a sitting, and her husband came through, and all this information came through, which was accurate, and I was happy. But as I went to finish, and I said, oh, and he loves you, and I went just like that and gave a salute, and she collapsed to the floor in tears. And she said that's the very final thing he did as he drew his last breath was salute me. Yeah. Now, to me, it was just a throwaway at the end, almost with no thought, because it was just like, oh, he's just doing that. Yeah. The whole significance of what it was and how it impacted her. So sometimes the little things, the little details, like the song, the little things mean so much. It's not always necessarily the biggest things. It's not always the biggest stuff.
And I find that the mind of the medium is trying to make the story with the information that's supplied. But of course, it's not our story; it's their story. Yeah.
And it's that learning to listen and to pay attention. And if we misinterpret it, then go back and say, "Okay, I've got in the way there, haven't I?"
Yeah.
So can you help make me aware of how this is and what this is? Because we might have it wrong.
Yeah. Ooh. So we go Lucas, to Holland.
Yay!
Vielen Dank. Good evening, Lucas. And he's asking, hi both. Why do you both think that it is not known to the whole world that life is eternal?
Do you want to go first or shall I go first?
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Go on.
Yeah, because I'll only take 2 minutes, and then I can go and make a cake and cook a pie while you're doing your bit. And go and glue the bottom of the lectern back on. Anyway, moving on.
If you will go for glass and metal, not my fault.
Lucas, lovely to hear from you, buddy. I think in different ways, it is understood. We look at things through the lens of spiritualism, and the worst thing about spiritualists is we want to make everybody else a spiritualist, so that they will see eternal life through our eyes and understanding. But all the major religions talk about a hereafter. Every major religion, and even going back pre-religion to no, not Satanism.
Where you're going there, Lawrence? Are you trying to tell us something?
I'm beginning to think I'm cursed, but anyway, shamanism and other philosophies pre-religion. There is always mention of the second life after life. We differ because we present that evidence of it. And that is our big, stick in the road about it, that we can actually present the evidence about it. But we still can't make people believe.
Mm.
I know somebody who regularly they'll get communications. Some okay, some I'm just sat there going, "Blimey, that is so good." And at the end, they go, "Yeah, I'm still not sure," and I'm just thinking, "But what? But why?"
Yeah.
So that's my tuppence.
Mm. And I would agree with everything you've said, so I won't say anything. No, I'm joking. I do agree with everything there, though, because it is in different ways an afterlife, an existence of the soul. Spiritualism isn't necessarily accepted in a lot of countries still, or understood in a lot of countries. You know, where you are in Holland, it's still burgeoning, it's still becoming something new and greater in a way, which is exciting. I think we chatted about that at the college. You know, where you are, there's a lot of people that will be starting to look and find and want to know more. But I remember going back, and it's a number of years now, but there was like these when they do the polls for what do you believe and the census and everything else, and it said that the belief in survival after death in the UK had gone beyond 53 odd percent plus in people of all beliefs. So in other words, throughout the whole of the country, it had actually tipped over beyond the halfway point. That there were a lot of people who said they accepted there was an afterlife, that they accepted that there was some form of communication that is out there beyond that. So, and again, those won't just be spiritualists. You know, if half the country was spiritualists, that would be great, wouldn't it? Our churches would be very packed.
I don't know at the moment.
No, Lawrence.
Maybe not just at the moment.
Mr. Tact, behave.
I know. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, folks. You'll have to put up with us when we're like this. But yes, so I think there is. I think people's perception of mediumship. 'Cause again, people know about mediums, but they don't necessarily know about spiritualism. You know, we have this when you think that there are a lot of people who may have found spiritualism through people like Doris Stokes and you know, Colin Fry, Tony, other TV and theatre mediums throughout the country. And you know, Colin always used to point people wherever he demonstrated. He always used to say, "Here's your nearest spiritualist church. Go to the church," and he'd always do that. Wherever he went, same with people like Gordon Smith, etc. All of them. So you know, when you've got people kind of out there capturing the imagination, but some people, and you know, it's always been the big argument. Oh, if we just got rid of the term church, we'd have more people. Doesn't necessarily prove the point out. Where I've seen places that have changed from church to centres, it hasn't necessarily altered their attendance ratings, if I'm honest. I think that, you know, some people maybe have a bit of a stigma or trauma because of upbringings in churches where maybe God hasn't been seen as a nice and beneficent being, or they've been told they're wrong because of religion or felt out of place. So, but to me, spiritualism, and I think we talked about this, maybe it was in the demonstrations recently in the Sunday services. To me, religion is my faith that I cling to, the core tenets of and belief of when life is becoming very challenging. So that's where it becomes my belief. You know, I know there's an afterlife. I know there's spirit communication. I know there's people there for me, but it's the belief and the understanding within spiritualism that then I draw to, and upon my faith and my hope when I'm dealing with situations in life. So for me, that's why I don't want the faith of it, the belief and the philosophy of it kind of removed just to be, you know, a demonstration of. I want it to have the ability to touch the soul, to provoke questions, to get people to think about the divine, and what that power is. You know, not God. Lawrence has a very good expression, which is a God of your own understanding, which I love that terminology, a God of your own understanding, or the divine power, or infinite spirit, infinite mind, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it. But you see, a lot of people shy away from that at times because they are focused again on mediumship and communicating with particular individuals, giving messages, rather than who else and what else are we connecting to spiritually, and this divine power and how it works within us, and how, what the implication of that is. Not just the implication, you know, of life eternal, but what does life eternal mean for you now? How does it affect you now? If you are eternal and have this spark of the divine in you, what is that spark of the divine? What does it look and feel like? How does it affect you? How does it move through you? How is the spirit that you are different to the conscious part of you? And how is the spirit different in what you see in the, from what you see in the mirror? You know, these are all things, and how do you interrelate to other people? You know, loads of people want to work on communicating with the dead, but can't bear talking to the living. You know, that's something we're here to do, is to communicate with the spirit incarnate, not just the discarnate.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to look at the personal development, the spiritual development. How do we connect to nature? You know, where is the God in nature, or the divine in nature, and how do we connect to that? How do we connect to that within the connection to all living creatures, the dust on the surface of the earth itself, you know, the dust beneath our feet, you know, everything, if it has divine essence or energy, interconnects with us, relates to us, affects us. You know, Lawrence has been saying for days, and I know a couple of people that are on here, I've got a cracking headache, we're going to have a thunderstorm. That's an interconnection between sensitivity and nature. So that's part of the divine in nature. You know, and it's looking at these things. It's realizing that mediumship, the practical application of mediumship on a public platform, is only a very tiny part, but it's something that we often divest all the energy into, and forgetting, not always, but forgetting all of this other stuff that can enrich not only our experience of that little bit, but also of other things in our life as well.
So
you know,
true.
It's huge. An exploration of spirit, not just mediumship.
Yeah. There was a post a little while back, and somebody had said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so busy this month. I've got 2 demonstrations and a divine service." And I'm like, yeah, well, that's 6 hours out of the month. What about the rest of it?
Don't. When I was in my 20s, well, when I was in my teens and in my 20s, I had a 5-year diary, and I would book 5 years in advance, and I would do anywhere between 200 and 300 plus services a year on top of working full time, and then doing courses and workshops and everything else. And and all of a sudden I hit 30 and went, I'm knackered. What have I done to myself? Because it's very easy to get caught up in, and to do lots and lots and lots and lots. And you know, and sometimes we sort of do spiritual bypassing, where rather than dealing with our own stuff, we go and do loads of other things that make other people feel good, that make us feel good, and therefore we don't worry about the stuff we've got to deal with, because I'm feeling good at the moment, because I'm in the afterglow of this work that I'm doing. But all the time, the stuff that I haven't dealt with is getting progressively more and more and more problematic, and then eventually the crisis point comes, and it all implodes. And we see that with healers, therapists, mediums, all sorts of different people, where we're trying to heal the something in us that maybe is not happy, and we think that being a medium or a healer or a therapist, it makes us then a good person, and therefore it's going to heal us. Actually, the only way we're going to heal us is working directly on the issues that are there, deal with the problems that are there, deal with the understandings of where they come from, where those situations and those issues come from. And rarely is a problem with our mediumship anything to do with our mediumship. It's normally to do with our education, our upbringing, the way other people influence and affect us. It's all of that stuff, because that's what makes up our mentality and our mindset. And then that gets in the way of our mediumship, or we let it get in the way of our mediumship, is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah. And it's where we are at the moment. Somebody who was having a bit of a problem with their mediumship, but when the story came out of their personal life, I'm like, well, you need to sort your personal life out, and this is something we don't do. We don't invest in. You said the phrase personal development. I mean, it's all right for us to go around proving the continuity of life. What does that mean to us?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. What does that mean to you, the medium? Not what you said, not how you made that person feel. What does it mean to you? And it's by this continual evolution of ourselves. I've drafted up a self-assessment form. And if anybody wants a copy of it, just send me a message. Quite happy to. And it's just questions to ask yourself after doing a dem. And, it's not leaning, because we all do it, don't we? Oh, I missed that. I didn't do this. I didn't do it. We come off the platform sometimes and we've got 28 reasons of things we haven't done right. And we never acknowledge, that difference we made. And
we'll always, and this is a thing that a lot of people do, we will only focus on the 1% that's wrong and not the 99% that's correct. We will always remember the times we put our foot in it more than the amount of times we didn't.
Yes.
And so we become more and more critical if we're not careful. If we start to get in our own heads on it, and again, it's because we put the pressure on. And this is again why, and we had this question before, a couple of people before one of the Sunday services recently, who are stepping out on the platform and working, and I said, it's so important that when you go to work with other mediums, you feel comfortable and safe, and you don't feel there's an element of competition, because you're sharing the energy of that platform. And it just like a circles of it, you date back, and all you hear people say is circles are supposed to be places of harmony. And the reason for that is because you are laying yourself bare, if you like, energetically, not literally or figuratively, but literally energetically. We know your circles, Lawrence. We have these. We are in a more vulnerable state. When I mean vulnerable, I don't mean from nasty stuff out there, but from the people that we're around, that we're opening up, and we're maybe talking about our feelings, and people are maybe doing their psychic and mediumistic work with us. So therefore they are touching on our emotional and sensitive experiences of our life. And so therefore that's why circle leaders and other people in the circle, you have to build that level of trust and harmony with. And therefore, it is a very intimate experience working with the spirit world. I believe, and I have to make sure I phrase this right, I think when you're blending with other people in the spirit world, I think it's probably the most intimate connection we get, because it's like a soul to soul. Again, giving a reading can be very intimate, very intense. Whereas other people may be in our lives and we have a physical and mental and emotional connection, but it's whether we have that soul to soul kind of connection. And I kind of find that there's an intensity and there's a depth that maybe comes through the spiritual connection, which again, people have as well within relationships. But I think it's a very intimate and very intense connection. And when I say intimate, I mean personal, not sexual.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just
Careful. We've got loads of things coming in, loads of questions.
We have. So bear with us, people putting questions in. Absolutely wonderful, but just bear with us.
Lawrence is going to have a scroll on his mouse now.
Yeah, we don't want to click through and answer a question with no. Next question. Arisha again's asking, says divine service is the most important. Do you think all the clairvoyant evenings can devalue what we believe?
I think that there are different purposes for different types of demonstration. Right, I'm going to have to tread carefully now before the voodoo dolls of Mark come out again and pins are stuck in them from miles away.
On sale at Paul, only $4.99.
On sale at Paul, yeah, absolutely. Got to make it where you can. And I worry when churches start to restrict access to divine services for putting in just more and more demonstrations without philosophy, without and again, we have seen that people, and again, I'm not knocking running a church is incredibly hard work. I don't think anyone who attends a church necessarily knows how much goes on in the background and how much it takes out of the people running it and organizing it. But you often hear,
like coming down at 9 in the morning and finally got Niagara Falls coming through.
Absolutely, but Paul's new water park feature. But you hear this, and I've heard this at a lot of churches. Oh, well, philosophy evenings don't get bums on seats, so we don't put them on. Oh, philosophy workshops don't get high attendance, so we don't put them on. This doesn't get bums on seats, so we don't put it on. And you think the problem is, though, when you don't put these things on, they're not available. So therefore, it's a bit. I'm going to use a very poor analogy. So I have lost some weight, and when I was going into shops that said on their websites that they had 4XL, I would go into the shop and go, "Oh, I can't find any of your 4XLs. Oh, it's because we don't sell any of them. We don't sell many." And I said, "But if they're not on the shelf, how can I buy them? So you aren't going to sell none. You aren't going to have interest in them. Oh, you can order it online and then come back and collect it." And if you think about it, if someone's searching for something, goes to a church or a centre, can't find what they're looking for, they will go elsewhere.
Yeah. Or give
so
up.
If they can't find the answer, if they don't like the energy, if they don't like the way they were spoken to, if they don't like this, that, or the other, they'll find a reason to go elsewhere. And I think that a lot of people will go to a demo, a clairvoyant demo, mediumship demo, whether it's in a church or not. If, like we said, when you've got the likes of Colin and other mediums, I keep referring to Colin because I know that he used to say it every single time. Wherever he went, he would always direct people to the local spiritualist churches. Sometimes it can be the way to get the foot in the door mentally, to then say, oh, well, there's a spiritualist church. Loads of people, when I tell them where Poole is or where Bournemouth Spiritualist Church is or Christchurch or wherever, they'll go, oh, is that what that building is? So they often know the building, but they don't know what goes on behind the doors. And again, we've had a lot of conversations over the years about mediumship and spiritualism has stayed behind closed doors a lot. And because we had and I don't mean this rudely, oh God, I'm going to get myself into so much trouble. When I think about what I would think of as heyday was when my family moved down to Bournemouth, and this would have been in the early 80s. And if you didn't get to church, if a service was at 6:30, if you didn't get there by 6, you were unlikely to get a seat. And that was in all of the churches locally to where we were. And that was common. And I think that mediumship had a heyday rise, and we became complacent, thinking, oh, well, we're wonderful and everyone knows we are. And we stayed behind closed doors. And we didn't reach out as much as we could or should. I mean, this is reaching everywhere. So, online and COVID pushing a lot of people to work online has meant it's, everywhere, and can be stored to be rewatched and re-listened and reabsorbed and re-questioned. So there is an element. And I think the problem is that there's a lot of people who, again, Arisha, you and I have talked about this, I know, at length in the past. There are a lot of people who just want to go and be entertained, and therefore they just want to go and see a medium at a theatre or a working club or whatever. And I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a problem if, when we do have the chance to have people in to a church or a spiritualist centre, and there isn't much to offer them other than DEMS.
Yeah.
Because where do you go? You've had a message from your loved one. If there's nothing else but that in the end, people go, oh, well, I've had my message. What else?
Yeah.
If they don't know there's more, if they don't see there's more, if they're not encouraged, if community and pastoral connection isn't built, if and again, no disrespect to anyone anywhere, if a church's doors are only open once a week and they've got a building, a physical building, and it's only open once a week and it's one demo and there's nothing else, then how's it going to grow and change if that's all there is?
Yeah.
Because if your demo's on a Saturday night, woe betide you when Strictly starts or when the Traitors
Are
go.
you listening, Leslie Thomas?
Well, Leslie, are you a Strictly fan?
Oh yes.
But I'm we joke, but I'll go back to again old-fashioned values in mediumship circles. When I was first sitting in circles with different mediums, you went 50 weeks a year, if not 51. You might have had a week off for Christmas, or if you went away on holiday, or you were nearly dying in bed. And that was it. You didn't miss. But people go, oh well, we friends have said, can we go out for a midweek meal? Yeah, but it's circle night. Oh yeah, well I'll see you next week. And it's just like back in the olden day. I'm much more chilled now. But back in the olden day, if somebody had 2 weeks off without genuine reasoning, they were not asked to come back on week 3.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to have 2 weeks off and it doesn't matter to you whether you're there or not, then actually maybe you're not in the space where you want to commit. And that's how old school circles used to be.
Yeah.
Really was. You didn't miss. It was an honor to sit. It was an honor to be in that circle and have that time with the spirit world rather than a hobby. There's nothing wrong with mediumship being a hobby, by the way, either. I'm not knocking that. But again, it's again perception of what this is about. What is it for you? As Lawrence said, why, if you're wanting to develop mediumship, what's the reasoning behind that? And again, developing it for your own personal connection, not a problem at all. Developing it to go out there and be a working medium, not a problem at all. Developing it whether you want to be in churches or you want to be online or not a problem at all. But looking at the reasoning why.
Yeah.
What's the motivation behind it? What's the thing? And again, there has to be different mediums for different people. A bit like when we were chatting about Lucas's question about there is mediumship in every religion. There is seership in every religion and prophecy in every religion. There is prophecy in media in spiritualism, but we're told off of a public platform, you can't predict. You're not supposed to tell the future. But when people say the spirit world can't predict the future, I worry because there's a lack of understanding that a lot of our great mediums predicted the future.
Yeah.
A lot of them were seers and could predict. And if it's all energy and it's all there in the divine, it's all known. It doesn't mean we're going to know it all, but but it's known and it can be tapped into and it can be touched upon. And prophecy has always been a big thing, but it's become a bit taboo at one point, along with when people said psychic's a dirty word, psychics are lower than mediums. All of this is a nonsense and a misunderstanding, and it's again, because we're trying to contain and tell people things and try and restrict them rather than open them up and set them free.
So just very briefly there on Arisha's comment, do you think clairvoyant evenings can devalue what we believe? I think we probably want to take another angle on that and go, what are the churches and centres doing to uphold and disseminate what we believe? Because like Mark said, if you've got a building and you're only open for a couple of dems a week or one dem a week, what are you doing? I'm not knocking people, but what are you doing? Where are the, when I say about Paul, I'm not saying look at the really big thingies.
Yeah.
We do different types of services. We'll do a philosophy only service. Different themes for services. It keeps the energy rolling wonderfully, but it's also that overarching thing that everybody will take different things from different presentations of services.
And I'm gonna add in here, because I don't want anyone listening who runs a church and does this and to go, oh, that's not fair. I'm not knocking. Remember when I said at the very beginning of what I said is that it's very hard work running a church, and getting people to volunteer to run groups, run events, run circles is no mean feat. So please don't think when I say if you only have one thing on a week. What I'm trying to get across is that there is so much that a church or a centre needs to offer. If you look at an Orthodox church, there is a lot of pastoral care, a lot of community care. I mean, we'll use Lawrence's church at Poole as an example. Christmas Day meal. How many people? And again, look at different beliefs. There are a lot of people that give up their time on Christmas Day in different beliefs to support those without and those who are out in the cold or those who are lonely, etc. It's not just something that Lawrence does, but again, it's that doing things for the community that are beyond just throwing on a demonstration.
Yeah.
And, support groups, times when people can come in and talk, libraries, there are church libraries that are sometimes locked away behind glass and people cannot access them.
Both parents and grandparents.
Yeah. But inside of those books, if those books aren't read, those words are dead to the world. So therefore, we need to be able to encourage learning, questioning. We need to encourage this and bring this stuff out and be, and that's where maybe people think about the word centre rather than church. But for me, church is pastoral. A centre is a place of pastoral support and care. And I know and again, I'm going back to it. It's no easy thing. I ran my own therapy and reading centre for 12 years with my mum. And a lot of that time, I was doing 80 hours a week running a centre. And it wasn't doing demonstrations of mediumship, and it was teaching, it was educational. And it was hard. It was jolly hard work, and running a church and being a committee member is even harder, especially because, when it was my business, I was getting money out of it to pay my bills. The people that put this time and energy into the church aren't paid. They're doing it for the love of it. They're doing it because they're giving something back. So please don't take anything I'm saying out of context, saying, oh, it's easy. It's not easy. But we need to think committees and communities build when there's things for everyone to be involved in. And even a garden tidy up day. So we're going to have cups of coffee and pieces of cake for everybody who comes and helps us put a few weeds, or we need to do a bit of a repaint, or we're going to have just a drop in and have a cup of coffee in the warm. And a lot of churches I know have taken on board those kind of things, but that's where you'll build community.
Yeah.
For the young and old alike.
And when you say drop in for a cup of coffee, you don't actually have to do readings as well.
No,
you know that?
No,
you don't
can just have a coffee morning.
Not written anywhere that you have to do that.
You can just have a coffee morning. You can just pop in for a natter and a chat, and and again, it's building and having time for people.
Yeah,
that's pastoral, really, to me. It's having the time, having a moment where you can be with people, where you can offer people different things. And again, I know when people are working, they may only be able to give an hour here and an hour there. So I'm not knocking any of this. And as I said to you, hard work. But it's important that we don't give in to just purely what's popular for bums on seats.
Yeah.
We need to remember what the purpose of the building, the church, and the place is for. It's not just for a demonstration of mediumship. It's a place of healing. It's a place of sanctuary. It's a place where somebody should feel safe and included, no matter who they are, what they believe, what they look like, what they have, what they haven't got. None of that. We should be the best example of what we can be as embracing all, because that's what spiritualism in theory should be, embracing every religion, understanding, and belief.
Yeah.
embracing every aspect of walk of life, but is that what we present, and is that what we put out into the world? There's a question.
It is. So I just want to catch up on, because they're coming in thick and fast, which is
Hurrah!
wonderful. So we're going over to Sunny Island.
Hello.
And David asks, he says, are a lot of these showbiz mediums, are they just not in it for the money?
Don't know. You'd have to ask them individually about why they're in it. I've never had a problem with the idea that people are going to throw money at mediums, okay, for whatever they're doing. Anything that you take on and give all your time, your energy, your devotion, you pay for courses, you travel up and down the country and do this, that, and have no problem with that at all. So long as you're providing what you're being paid for, I don't have a problem with. The intentions, when you think about, this was one of the things that used to get said about Colin Fry, that there were people who, Colin used to do lots of churches. He used to go and do demonstrations and trance demonstrations and physical phenomena things, all sorts of things. But he used to do a lot with the churches. And then when he kind of got the TV thing, it meant he had to reduce his commitment. Now, notice the words reduce, not stop. So he would do what he could, where he could, when he could. And then also, because of the chance to reach more people, he started doing more theatre tours. But as I said before, he would always turn people back to the churches to say, this is where you need to go. So he was using that platform. And there are other mediums out there, theatre mediums and things, who work a foot in both camps. Not a problem at all again. And maybe there are people, as there are in every profession, who are drawn to the money, every profession, not just mediumship, that the money is the sole goal. Now, then we might question the reasons why, but it doesn't stop them being a good medium.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't stop them being a bad medium either. So the mediumship is the irrelevant. It's why they're doing it and what the motivation is behind it. And that, again, won't stop them from being a good medium. Because the spirit world aren't going to say, and again, this used to get said, oh, if you're greedy, if you do this, if you do that, the spirit world will take it away from you. They can't take away what you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
They may not, they may be, there's never going to be a shortage of people from the spirit world who want to communicate. There's never going to be a shortage of people in the world who want to know and find out about what's going on. So therefore, there's always going to be that work there. Intention is always, I think, significant. But again, I think the other comment you made underneath it was about making people happy. Can you find that? Not to make other people happy. Well, I'm going to challenge on that and say entertainers make people happy. They don't make everybody happy. Some singers, people are related at their voice, and other people go, what is that noise? So what makes them happy is a personal thing, a bit like receiving the message. And again, for them, they may feel when an audience, the applause of an audience at the end shows them that they've made those people happy. So, and again, people are going to a theatre or a venue. There's an element of being entertained. Sometimes there are things I have seen which make me uncomfortable. For instance, this night is for over 18s only, as there may be blue and coarse language. And I'm thinking, well, the only way blue and coarse language is coming through is if you've got a member of your family who swore like a trucker, or the medium normally just drops the F-bomb and everything else left, right, and centre normally anyway. And again, some people might go, well, that's disgusting. You shouldn't work that way. Again, we're back to a judgment. We're working with people. If I walk down the road, if I walk down through M&S, I'm going to hear people that speak very, very poshly, but I'm also going to hear people that are effing and jeffing and blinding everywhere. There's all sorts of different things. Again, the time, the place, and what it's for and what it's about is very much in play. And again, if we look at other professions, there are other professions where people do it for little or next to nothing, and other people do it for an incredibly high amount of money. And the only difference is who's going to be willing to pay that level of money. for what's done. And again, you know, there is no nobility in suffering and being poor in this world if you have a great gift. You can choose to go down that route, and you know, I hear people go, well, I'd never charge for my gift. That's fine, that's a choice you're making, but you then can't judge another person for charging, because that's going to keep a roof over their head so they can reach more people and do more. Can't do it unless God's going to pay your bills for you.
Tried that.
Which
Didn't
so
work.
far Ovo haven't accepted that as a good answer when they've asked me for the bill. You know, so, and I'm not being overly flippant or disrespectful. People make the choice. You know, I don't want to charge for this. I don't want to do this as a professional, as a living. That's absolutely fine. But then don't beat other people with a stick when it is their profession. And they might be, you know, if you think about Doris Stokes and you know, and all her books, and I mean, they were worldwide bestsellers. Was Doris's books? Loads of people still today will tell you, oh yes, they were on my nan's bookshelf, and I read them, and you know, and you know, I don't know what Doris's finances were like, none of my business, but that will have had a profound effect on millions and millions of people. Colin's TV shows, Tony's TV shows, other mediums in other countries that have had TV shows. Hello, Daniela, and other people out there, and America and wherever else. Those will have had profound effects on people. They will have made people question. They may have made people laugh and gone, what a load of fools are these people to believe in people you can't see. But what it's done is it reaches out there and may just make one or two people question. You might have an audience of 1,000 people. If you only touch one, you've done your job.
Exactly. Because in that sort of environment, you're more likely to reach out to people who would not think to come into a church.
Yeah.
But you don't know. Anyway, lovely Lucas is going to. He wants all the I's dotted and T's crossed, doesn't he, on this question?
I'm happy to read this. I'm squinting because it's in the middle distance in my vision, and therefore I'm struggling.
So he's saying, thanks for your answers and conversation. Why would you both say that it is not possible or perhaps known to most people that they can communicate with discarnate spirit? And why it is not as easy as talking with the living?
Do you mean worldwide again? I'm going to take it on worldwide. In different communities, different countries, the strength of the religion kind of at the head of the state or the country often controls what is seen as acceptable and not as acceptable. And therefore, often mediumship was very much a backroom thing. Even here in the UK, only going back, where are we? 70 odd years back, people were being raided in their homes for holding seances by the police. So, and in other countries still, that I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I think there are still some places where it is seen as not a good practice and not to be done, not to be seen to be done. But it's starting now to find its foothold. And again, you know, it's interesting in a lot of Catholic countries, there is a great interest, but there's also a great fear of the spirit world from a negative point of view of the problems that could come from negative and evil spirits, etc. So spiritualism and the ability to communicate, but remember, when you look at more biblical texts, you're told, and interpretation is always going to be the key. You come to God only through me, through Jesus. So people saying you shouldn't be communicating with the spirit world. That's not your job. You have to commune with Jesus and the divine. You don't disturb the dead. You don't wake the spirits. You don't disturb people. So, and these, although we think, you know, from a mediumistic point of view, we might think this feels very antiquarian. It's still very alive in teaching. We still have people that dislike spiritualism and mediumship and twist what mediumship and spiritualism and mediums are. You know, and again, everybody's entitled to their beliefs so long as they don't come on my doorstep and try and ram it down my throat without being open to hearing what I have to say as well. But that's something that I've come across, and even only a year or two ago, I was in a church holding a workshop, and we'd had the door locked, you know, because once they're in, they're not getting out. And we'd had the door locked, but someone had to leave. Yeah, someone had to leave early. And when they went, the person who let them out didn't relock the door. They just let them out and didn't think to lock it again. And we were doing a meditation, and just as I was bringing them out of the meditation, a very irate and angry lady came in with another man from one of the evangelical churches down the road and started screaming and shouting and telling us we were all going to hell and we were all evil and these were all evil. And literally, bless her heart, she was having almost a full-on breakdown, spurned on by this man who kind of loaded the bullets and let her go. And it was distressful for everyone involved, really distressing, because we were only just literally on the last few breaths of coming out of a meditation, and then bang, this happened. And same people went to another spiritualist church only a couple of weeks later and did the same at a divine service. That church actually, we probably should have done it at our one, but reported it to the police as a hate crime, which it was, because somebody came in to the church, was being hateful about our belief and our understanding, screaming and shouting the odds, and wouldn't leave when they were politely asked to go. So there are issues that are there with different beliefs, and there are still people that hold on to, because of their familial connections and things, to those different beliefs. So that's why maybe in some areas mediumship and spiritualism and spirit communication is not so known. And again, we may want to argue, and again, trying to not be insulting of anyone else's belief, but if you were to take away the divine right of certain people in spiritual positions who say that they are the ones that are meant to talk to God, and you start talking to God in the spirit world yourself, you remove their power.
Mm-hmm.
You remove their power. Technically, you don't, but they no longer have a power over you that says, God tells me you this. You can then sit, blend, and be aware of the divine for yourself. You are able to sit and connect for yourself. This is why the ideal view, from my point of view, of mediumship and spiritualism is that everyone has that understanding of communication, and we almost don't have a need for demonstrations in churches. That day won't really come, but that would be the ideal, that we don't need to keep proving because everyone knows. We don't need to keep on telling people, but there's always going to be other beliefs, other alternative thoughts. There are always going to be people that are angry and hateful towards another belief or religion. That's just the nature of being here in life. You know, you could have a whole load of people in a room and there'll still be somebody who doesn't like something. You could have the greatest harmony. If somebody just has one issue, it's going to affect everything else. You know, there's the lovely expression that we have here in England about certain types of people. They could have an argument in a phone box with no money, meaning that they can have an argument with absolutely no one when they're not even speaking to anyone. That's how much of an argumentative person they are. And unfortunately, there are people who just want to be that. And even within spiritual fields, there are people who want to be that, even within spiritual, because people are people.
Yeah.
People are people regardless.
That's something I think we tend to overlook. We can think, spiritualists, they're doing, spiritualists do it. It's not spiritual, it's just the human element. It's not because they're a spiritualist or because I'm a spiritualist. It's just that human element.
Yeah.
No, it transcends any labeling. It's just people being people.
Yeah. And that's why when we're dealing with other people, and we've got to realize that mediumship and healing, the faculties and abilities, do not change who you are as a person. They can, if you allow them to. This connection to the spirit world can transform you, but it doesn't mean it will. It's whether you're going to work on yourself and in tandem with. And therefore, you can have people that are great mediums and amazing demonstrators and amazing healers. But as people, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could chuck them. Because that's not the gift. The gift or the ability does not define the personality. We would hope it would, but we know that's not the case. So therefore, you can be lovely and be a great medium, or you can be a little SH1T and be a great medium. It's not going to affect the mediumship, not really.
We did a lot of interactions with the spiritists, and we are resuming that. That is coming back to the fore. I'm so pleased to say we've got some lovely surprises next year. But anyway, that's next year. But their version, they understand mediums and mediumship very different to us. It's just sort of like, I'll see him down the road. Yeah, he's a medium. Oh, is he? All right.
Yeah.
There's no, there's no special gift. I really object to that phrase. The gift. They just treat it totally different. Their demonstrations of mediumship very different to ours. Nothing like ours, and it's fascinating and it's really intriguing as well. But it's just a very interesting side. This is what I found when I was working with them quite a lot. I like this different approach. I like this different style of, being a medium on the platform isn't the nadir of what they do. It's about how they live, what they do, how they work with other people, what they support.
Because they don't have. I know that there might be the odd one now, but it never came from a church point of view. It came from a way of living, and the Allan Kardec books, which are a kind of a version of the Bible, but written within a spiritualist slant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the basis. Like, we talk about the birth of modern spiritualism with the Fox sisters and Andrew Jackson Davies. Allan Kardec is of a similar ilk and age, and those key books that were written, there are several, the Medium's book and the Spirit's book, and one to do with the words of Jesus. But there's a number of different texts, but those are like a lot of the core teaching texts that are still key now. 100 and however many years on, 170 years on. So again, there are different crossovers, different part of the world, different way of expressing and working with the spirit world. Bearing in mind, again, in South America, there's a massive diversity of religion and belief, of all different sorts, where there's a lot of crossing over between the sort of shamanic and earth religions and orthodoxy religion, which again almost Kardec is, and spiritualism is. When you look at a lot of the early writings in spiritualism, when we look at people like Stainton Moses and other people, when you read it, it's very biblical.
Yes.
Very, very biblical, very, very referring back, into biblical texts, because it's of the time. When we look at a lot of things, again, we know the Bible is many times rearranged, recanonized, or whatever they call it, the canon of the Bible. It's been changed again and again and again and again and again. And there are lots of gospels that came to light that the church went, no, we don't agree with that. We don't believe in that. We know a lot of stuff got burnt at one point, Pope Pius. Lots of things, lots of teachings, words and things that may have been seen as non-standard teaching disappeared.
Like you said earlier, it took the focus away from I can talk to God to we can talk to God.
Yeah, that's why if you've never read it, and it's not very big, the Gospel of St. Thomas, which was a gospel that was found and was denied by the church as being valid. There's a bit in it which says, split a piece of wood, and lift a stone and I am there, split a piece of wood and I am there, meaning that God is in nature, not in the bricks and mortar of a church. And that was one of the things that threatened it, that you meet God in nature and therefore you don't need that place. You find me wherever you look for me. And that's kind of taking you away from that environment. And if we were honest, you can find spirit world anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be finding it around other people who understand what you're doing.
It does. It does. And when we come together with that similar understanding of things, it's wonderful for us that we can share and open up and ask questions, but it can also create divisions and it can build walls between people. And
yeah, can you bring up Stephen's comment? Good evening, Stephen, about British Telecom.
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to take a breath, darling.
Sorry.
So, lovely Stephen. So we're going all around Europe today. So we're in Portsmouth today. How wonderful. British Telecom, once privatised, was asked to survey the nation and find out how to return some of the profits to the customer. This resulted in the Friends and Family scheme because it was felt that to communicate with your loved ones is sacred, and therefore calls to your chosen numbers were free in the evening. I think we are obliged to keep it affordable.
I would agree with you that that's why the purpose of why we have the churches and the connections there.
Yeah.
And I would agree that that's why when you have a divine service, it's not a charged service, it's a free will donation. Mm-hmm. And community things within the church are normally a free event or a very, very minimal cost if there is anything that's being laid out for. So I agree, but I would say that you could say that about dentistry. Everybody should be able to get free dental treatment because it's a right that we should all have. We should all have totally free. You know, we're very lucky that we still have what's there as an NHS, which in the large, you know, although we might have a long waiting time, things get done more or less for free. We take that for granted. If you go to other parts of the world, if you fall ill, the first question is like, where's your credit card or where's your insurance documents? Yeah. You know, we take things for granted, and there's, you know, I agree with you that affordable, but there are people out there. This is one of the arguments when somebody, because I work with a charity that works with self-employment, and we get a lot of people that go, I want to heal the world, but I don't want to charge for it. It's absolutely fine, but it's not a good business model if you're wanting to keep a roof over your head. So therefore, there is the one big argument is that a bit like your BT, actually, they make a huge amount of profit, and then they are able to do things that they then give back to the people that can't afford or can't do. That would be the same where you have people in the world who charge a very high rate for what they do so they can do pro bono work for others.
Yeah.
Lawyers, solicitors, all sorts of different people, and all different professions. There will be people who who have a high-paying job, and then they will donate their time, their energy, their skills to other people who can't, and therefore there is a balance between what they charge for on a high level and what they give away for free. And again, so I think I think the obliged to keep it affordable is what we do within the church circuit, very much so. When people go to a theatre, I mean, I'm shocked. I was thinking about going to see the Abba Voyage, but someone told me the tickets have gone over £100 now, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I don't need to see it that much. Yeah. But again, when you look, there are costs, there are whatever. You know, there are people who will go and see that 8, 9, 10 times in a year, but they could buy an album of ABBA for a tenner. Yeah. But they choose to pay. So, and I'm not saying that everyone has to pay. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's, again, we have to be careful. We don't fall into the trap that it's wrong to charge. You know, if people, that's why we say to people, because people go about sittings, they want to go and have sittings, but a sitting's this much and a sitting's that much. Doesn't matter what you charge for a sitting, whether it's £5 or 500. It's entirely up to you what you're going to charge. But my comment is always, why have you gone to a spiritualist church? No, I just want to have a reading with a medium. Well, why don't you go to a spiritualist church? Oh, well, I don't want to do that. We sometimes get to the bottom of it, but other times, and it's like, well, so they want a message, they want a specific service, and therefore they're going to go and pay, hence psychic fairs and everything else that's popular, clairvoyant nights at pubs and whatever. Again, it doesn't matter what you think of them, they serve a purpose to the people. But we've got to remember, I always tell people, go to your local spiritualist church, watch mediums work. If you get a lovely message from a medium and it really resonated with you, then why don't you go up to the medium afterwards and say, do you do private sittings?
Yeah.
And therefore that you've seen. Now, bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, just because someone's a good platform demonstrator doesn't mean you're going to have a great private sitting. Doesn't always follow, and vice versa. But your chances are better if you've seen someone, you're relaxed with the way someone is and the way someone works. But again, if that private sitting is in a church, it's going to be heavily subsidized by the church. If you're seeing someone in their home or wherever else, it may not be so. And again, the price tag that's associated doesn't necessarily tell you anything more about the quality between a £5 and a £500 reading.
No.
It doesn't. But there are people, and I know this, there are people who, for instance, when certain TV mediums were then going around the country and doing readings, and they were 130, 140 pounds for a private sitting, and people went and they were really disappointed because they didn't get what they saw on the TV. But as we know, TV is very heavily edited, so it may look a lot better than it is in real life. Who knows? But again, even if you go to a great meet, I can remember when we used to have Glyn with us at the centre, there were a number of occasions when he would come up with someone that had gone for a private sitting and said, I'm really, really sorry. I can't get to where I want to be for this lady or this gentleman. Please refund them their money. That it's not worked. And that's okay. Honesty in mediumship is one of the biggest things. Price tag, I don't think, is necessarily the worry. Honesty is. If again, because it all comes under consumer law now, ladies and gentlemen, all healing, all mediumship, psychic readings, all under consumer law. If you are not provided with the service that you are paying for, then you are entitled to a refund. So if someone doesn't give you a reading, or you say that, after a few minutes into a reading that you're not happy, then an honest and a genuine medium will go, don't worry. Okay, maybe I'm not the medium for you. We'll call it quits. You don't owe me anything. And then you just walk away. What's the worst someone can say about your mediumship then? Well, he didn't get anyone for me and he didn't charge me anything.
Yes.
That only smacks of honesty.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody may go, oh, well, a friend of mine went for a reading and they didn't get anything. If that's the worst someone can say about you, that on an occasion it didn't work, well, then fine. But at least honesty is going to be in that review there, that, it didn't work, so you didn't charge.
I've had it recently with 2 lots of private sittings. It, like Lynn would say, it wasn't coming across the way that I would have preferred. So it was like, okay, that's fine. I'll refer you on to somebody. And that's, to me, that's what we should be doing. It's certainly not making it up.
No, I mean, I've, over the years, and I'm sure you've had the same ones, I've had students bring me cassette tape. Well, it shows how long ago we're talking about cassettes. Cassette tapes of readings. And they've said, what do you think of it? And I've sat there and I've been appalled that these are readings that have been charged for. And even when the person wasn't happy, the money was still taken and the person walked away with nothing. There's then the issue to do with money. Someone's taken your money and not given you anything in return for it. And they haven't been honest with it. Also, our biggest critics, people out there like Darren Brown and other mentalists that are not pro-spiritualism will say that everything's a cold reading or a retort or fishing or hot reading. And I have listened to tapes like that, where someone in a reading says, oh, I've got your grandmother, no description of grandmother. I've got your grandmother, and she said there's a problem at work. Is there a problem at your work? Well, yes, I'm having a problem with a colleague of mine who's done this, and yeah, you see, she tells me how bad this. And what's happening is you're telling, but then when the medium or psychic is responding, you're thinking they've told you everything, when in fact all they're doing is they've echoed back to you what you've told them.
Yeah.
So if any of you ever go, by the way, to book a sitting with a medium, you give them a first name and a phone number and nothing else. You don't tell them why you're going for the sitting. You don't tell them that it's the anniversary of your dad's or your partner's death. You don't tell them that you've lost a certain person and that's who you want to talk to, because once you've done that, you've scuppered part of that reading by doing it.
Very true.
All you need to say to someone is, I'd like to book either a mediumistic or a psychic reading, depending on what you're looking for, and a name, a first name, not your whole name, because, you know, social media, people can go and look. You know, this was the difficulty at one point. Oh, I'm going on. Sorry, Laurie. This was the difficulty at one point. One of my friends alerted me to something and said, can you sit in and watch a live that someone does with mediumship and tell me what you think? And I'm like, oh, do I have to? Because, you know, not a fun busman's holiday for me. And she said, because I think there's a bit of chicanery going on. And it was one of these ones where it's, you know, if you put enough hearts, I'll come to you and all this, that, and the other. And she hadn't told me, but she said, can you watch what goes on? And so I was watching, and I kept noticing that the medium was here and he's going, oh, yes, so-and-so and so-and-so. Yes, so-and-so, I'm going to come to you. And then this started to happen. And then he'd start saying about things, and the person would be, yes, that's right, and da-da-da, and the message is going up. And afterwards, I didn't stay on for the whole thing because it was like 2.5, 3 hours. It was just never ending. But I said to my friend afterwards, I said, is your question, do you think they're looking up on a different laptop the person's profile? And I said, well, it's interesting because when he was doing that, I looked up and clicked on someone's profile whose profile picture was an old lady with pipes up her nose. And he said, oh, I've got a lady here who's on a breathing machine. Would you understand that? And everything was in the top 2 or 3 posts on Facebook. Now, it was a free live on Facebook, and it may or may not have been what it appeared to be, or not even. But it was very interesting that my student had picked up on it. And she said, what do you think? I didn't know the medium from Adam, never heard of them really since. But it was just interesting that she had picked up on the fact that he was here, and then he's doing this, and then he's giving off stuff. And it all seemed to be whatever was on their profile page. So again, if you're contacting a medium, try and contact them off Facebook. Don't, because if you message them through Facebook and your thing isn't locked up tight, there's a lot of pictures and images of you, of your family. Doesn't mean they are going to do that. But, you know, if we were wanting to be ultra scientific, if you don't give a medium something that they can't know anything about you, then you're making it a much more fairer playing field. You know, and this is the difficulty that we've got with, you know, social media, and all of this is great, but everyone is only at the click of a button.
I've actually seen in a live, the person doing the reading had glasses on, and you could see the screen reflection keep changing between being in the live and looking at something. And they would look at something, come back and say something, and you're just like, yeah, you need contacts, love. Because... And
again, no disrespect to any mediums that work online. That's not not what I'm. You know, I'm going to get in so much trouble with so many people. But it's observation, and again, you've got to look at, and this is the whole part of spiritualism as an investigation, as well, and as scientific. You've got to explore. Could it be something else? Could it be? You know, I always say to my students who are interested in trance and physical mediumship, I tell them to go away and watch people like Penn and Teller and the Fool Us and all the magicians, because I find magic fascinating. But I can tell you, I've seen things in the seance room that can be replicated. And I have also been in seance rooms that have been fraudulent. And I know that they are the hand of the human being, not the hand of the spirit world. So I've always said to people, you know, if you go away and look at the skeptics, and you look at the cynics, and you look at why they're doing it. And Stephen's brilliant at this, by the way. He does some amazing talks on the science of our movement, and you know, looking at it in so many different ways. You know, he's brilliant. So look at the lives that he's done and go and see him and go and support him working. but it's that case of look at these things to understand how it's possible, because you hear things people say it's impossible to, so therefore it must be spirit. But if you know it's possible through other means, then yes, it could be spirit, but it could also be manufactured. And there were a lot of things over the years I've come across, and people said, oh, it's not possible. If and I know we're into physical mediumship, so some of you are probably thinking this sounds very weird and very bizarre, but often in physical seances, people are cable tied, and it's said that it's impossible to escape from a cable tie. If you are a gardener, you will know that if you put a cable tie on too tightly around a plant, you can get them off without having to cut them off. There is a little way of doing it. It's possible to remove a cable tie when it's been put on your wrist. Doesn't mean it's easy. Certainly I couldn't do it. I've got too much of a stomach in the way. But if you are able to reach, there are ways of undoing them. Houdini said there's not a lock or anything you can do that he couldn't pick or get out of. And he was a big, he was a friend of Arthur Conan Doyle, and they had a bit of an adversarial relationship on the view of mediumship and spiritualism. But it's because he could see that it was possible for things to be fraudulent. Yes, Houdini may have done suspect things himself in his lifetime, and also even in the pursuit of trying to deny spiritualism, there are some interesting stories of things being done at seances where he was caught out maybe being not so honest and genuine himself, trying to debunk people that maybe were genuine. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing, but I think we have to be honest, and we have to look that not everything is as it appears to be, and so therefore it's important, it's significant that we do encourage people to question. Don't accept blindly. Lawrence has an opinion, I have an opinion, Stephen, Arisha, David, Maggie, everyone that's on, Leslie, we all have opinions, we all have experiences that makes us unique. Our view of spiritualism, what we believe is and isn't acceptable within the movement, what we believe spiritualists should be or shouldn't be. We are unique individuals. Our knowledge and our understanding is unique, based around our experience and our perception, our reading, what we're interested in. All of those kind of things will inform our perception of spiritualism and of the spirit world and of the divine and of ourselves. This is all part of it. And the fact that we may not agree, we can agree to disagree. We can agree to have opposing thoughts. Glyn and I didn't see eye to eye on things. We'd often sit there and go, well, why do you believe that? Why do you think that's? And we'd talk about it, and we'd debate it. And sometimes, things would get a little choppy in the seas of what I believe and what he believes and where we meet. But then again, we would come to an understanding. And again, that's what maybe in our world, in our movement, in the world generally as well, is missing. That everyone wants it to be black and white. That it's real or it's not real, it's this or it's that, and it's not. We're all living in this wonderful, ever-changing, shifting sounds, swirling mists of awareness, and everything we know evolves. So therefore, nothing should remain the same. If it remains the same, are we not going backwards? Are we not being held to the past? It doesn't necessarily mean we have to chuck everything out. I'm old school spiritualism. I love old school spiritualism. I love old school hymns. I love everything about the divine service, and there are other people that are going, oh, there's no place for it anymore. But there are a lot of people, there is a place for that, and I don't think I can quite call myself into the old brigade yet. I'm getting there. I'm starting to silver, but I'm not there yet. But it's different strokes for different folks. And just because, again, sorry, Laurie, we've got to get all the young people in. And if we don't get rid of this, the best way to get young people in is just to allow them to be there. And if young people have families, to accept children into the church and into the services and into the demonstrations, and not make them feel that if they've got a child that laughs and giggles and snorts and farts and does whatever they do, quite a few of the congregation members do that, mind you. But if you've got children that do make noises, it shouldn't be an issue. It should be encouraged. I went to church as a child. I've been at church demonstrations. I don't know whether anyone's on here from down Gosport way, but I can remember one lovely Sunday service, and I got a little girl who, I don't know how old she was, maybe 3 or 4, only little, and she was doing aeroplanes up and down the aisle while I'm demonstrating, and everyone in there, you can see, is going, and I'm going, it's fine. She's enjoying herself. That's lifting the energy. And then she came and sat on the edge of the platform, dangling her legs, and I looked over and went, "You're right," and she was happy as Larry. Now, other people in the congregation were a bit like, that child shouldn't be running around. But actually, why shouldn't that child be in there and expressing its joy and its happiness? If a child was getting really leery, then say, okay, let's sit out. Let's go outside and have a breath of fresh air. But don't make the parent feel they can't come, because then that parent won't come until that child's grown up. And we've lost a generation, because I can guarantee you, unless that child knows what spiritualist church is, when they're a teenager, the last thing they're going to think about is wanting to come and sit in amongst a church. They want to be out enjoying life, like a lot of us should be at times, rather than sitting in the church. But we love the church.
That's exactly my philosophy as well with children.
Yeah.
Because you're not just saying, when you say no to children, you are saying no to the parents. And like you say, we lose a generation.
Yeah.
But also, I love this thinking that if a child is comfortable in the church and made to feel welcome and part of it, sometime in their life, something may draw them back to a church.
Absolutely. And it may be, even just giving them the understanding of aspects of it. It may not be, because it's like a thread that will weave through their life. And a lot of people here, and I know there's a lot of mediums and workers here, that they know that no matter how many times they think they're walking away from the path of spirit, they end up back on it. Because if it's meant to be and it's woven into that destiny, then it's always going to be there. And the understanding of things in the church will always serve their purpose at some point. They always will. And I think that this is where, again, people's reactions, again, remember, church is community. It's not just who's up on the platform. We've got an amazing medium. What about everybody in the congregation? Have you got an amazing church full of people? Have you told every one of your congregation how wonderful and how welcome they are, and made them to feel a part of what's there? Have we supported them when we've needed to? And when, and we have, a lot of young families out there, do they realize they can come and get their child or their baby, or even as an adult, be given a naming service and be brought into kind of the fold of spiritualism? You don't hear about that so much, but again, it's there. If you said to people, it's a spiritualist version of a christening, that kind of resonates, but it can be at any age, just like baptisms can be. So there's another aspect, again, that people don't often think about, don't look at. Again, do people understand what we are? And if they don't understand what we are, where does that misunderstanding lie? Who's at fault and who's to repair it? Yeah. Us, as spiritualists.
Exactly.
Go out there and bang the drum.
Exactly. I've got my registrar training next week.
Oh, get you.
I know. As you know, we've had a big change. We've got a new water feature come in and everything. Anyway, moving on. But again, and it's funny because you touched on this earlier on about, churches. I'm looking at where we are, finances, income, expenditure, etc., because we are a business.
Yeah, you have to keep the doors open.
Church, but we are a business, and everybody out there is associated and will understand this. And it's diversifying. So we're looking into being able to conduct the wedding here without the need for a registrar.
Yeah.
Because that's huge expense, just the registrar.
Massive.
But also it is part of the fabric of your church, that you can get married at your church.
Hatched, matched and dispatched. We do them all.
I have a list ready for the dispatch. I'm working on it.
Yeah, Lawrence's hit list.
I should get a few at the barbecue tomorrow, no doubt. Anyway.
Oh dear, what fun.
Yeah.
I know we're running so over time, but
That's
I don't
right,
mind.
that's fine.
I love playing with you guys. And Maggie's put in there, I'd love to see children come into a centre. You know, and this is gonna sound really odd, but we have to make space for it. So therefore, you know, in a number of churches I've been to, they get a little kiddie table, you know, like a little one that you'd have like in a Wendy house or a playroom, a couple of chairs, crayons. He's got them in the corner there, I know. And so there's something to keep them occupied, because you can say to parents that get them to bring colouring books and things like that, and they will, and they'll sit quite happily and do. But they might get a bit grizzly, they might get a bit hungry, they might get a bit bored, you know, or they might not. They might be completely riveted and fascinated by what they're experiencing. And I know, you know, some of my students have brought their grandchildren to services, and then later on the grandkids have said, oh, can we go to the church when Mark's on again? And I've got my own little tiny little groupies that are only yay high, and it's really, really sweet, because they're asking, because they're looking at things, and it's making sense to different aspects of their life and their experience, even if they're young. So, you know, we need to make the space for this. Is what I was saying about events and community. If you don't make the space to hold it, even if it's not the greatest of success, if it's helped one person or one family or one, then we're doing our job. We don't have to think that something has to be attended by the entire church for it to be a success. Something might be a success even if one or two people only latch into it, you know. But again, it's the perception of how we take what's success. What is a successful church? What does that look like? What does it serve its purpose? What is it doing to be successful? You know, and again, it's if people are able to come and find what they're looking for, that could be a measure of the success, whether it's a message, a healing, a chance to speak to someone who's totally separate from their own experiences, to find some understanding, whether it's to find out more about their mediumistic experience, their spiritual experience, you know, or it just might be that somebody just needs to go somewhere where they don't have to think about the rest of it for a while.
Yeah.
Just to escape. Then we're not necessarily trying to convert them. We're not trying to force them into anything, but just actually that they can just come and get away from and just decompress, you know, or have someone to, you know, come and have some healing and just not worry about things just for a moment during a service or a healing service or a circle, a meditation group, whatever. Doesn't matter, even as a coffee morning, just breaking away from whatever's around them for that moment in time. Priceless.
Yeah.
Priceless.
I think at times we've got to make that difference in our mind between being a spiritualist and being a human being. You know, not everything that comes through your door is a challenge or an opportunity for you as a spiritualist, but it most certainly is as a human being.
Yeah.
Again,
and to apply what we know.
Yeah.
To apply what we know and what we teach. To hold a space that's loving and healing for someone. We don't have to be going, oh, I'm going to put my hands on you now. We don't have to go, oh, I've got a message for you now. As you listen to someone, you're just giving them the space and that healing. And then, you know, you might be, you know, I found it very interesting when people come and talk to me before or after a service. And sometimes I go, oh, if you give me your name and number, I know someone who'll help you with that. And people are like, oh, really? And I'm like, I know someone who does that. I don't know whether they'll be right for you, but, you know, I know someone who. And so sometimes, you know, you might not have given them a message in a service, but they will put there to connect to you for some other reason.
Correct.
And that I see a lot in my life, even not when I'm in the churches, in other places, and people just stand in front of me and I go, oh, so what's that then? And then they talk about it and go, oh, well, funnily enough, I work with this is what I do. And people go, I'm glad I came today because I wouldn't have known about any of that. And it just happens to be the right person, the right time, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, perfection of a moment.
Yeah. Mark, it's been absolute pleasure, as always. Thank you,
I
thank you,
love that.
thank you for your time tonight. Much
You're
appreciated.
welcome. And thank you everyone at home. That was great.
Yeah.
All your questions, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Nice and interactive tonight. Thank you. We haven't got the live streaming up still at the moment, which is just as well because the place was a bit of a disaster. I'm sure a lot of you saw the flood this morning. So no live service tomorrow. Fingers crossed it will be back Sunday a week tomorrow. And I believe it is the lovely Stephen Maker.
Hey!
So, live services will recommence when we can. It's as simple as that. You know what? Building works, I've got it planned for 2 weeks. It's now into
best laid plans.
week 8. And it's like, is me getting angry and shirty over it going to do anything? You go, yeah, it's just going to upset me. So do you know what? Okay.
Well, didn't we both say at the same time the same thing this morning? Just as well, the carpet was delayed by 8 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Someone else knew to delay the carpet, didn't they?
Yeah. They could have warned me. Anyway. Lovely Jennifer out in Germany.
Marcel, lovely.
And she's talking, we walked in as strangers, the atmosphere is incredible, welcoming. We went as friends and we were very grateful. Warm greetings from Germany, Marcel and Jenny. Yeah, it was. I'd seen them online on the Friday night, and on Sunday I'm, doing me thing, and I'm looking at these people going, I know you. Where do I know you from? Yeah, lovely couple. And when I was out recently at the hotel, whatever the name was,
Yes.
the hotel with the
Yes.
no name, they were actually there as well at the same time. So we had some great fun. Brilliant pizzas. And Marcel got me onto a new beer, Cola Weiss.
Oh.
Which is yummy.
Yes, Wacker. We know. Yes, we know Jenny Wacker. Yes, he was being polite because here everyone's going to think we've gone a bit lewd.
So it didn't help that the bar was called the Lube Garden. I'm like, where the hell am I staying?
It's all right. Look, we have some very odd names. We've got Shitterton. Hiddleton Hyde. We've got all sorts of Cockfosters and everything. We've got some bizarre old names and all here. There's some places and you think, oh, they weren't thinking about that in Old English, were they? Oh, bless you.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. There is nobody at the moment booked for next Saturday for the Lyceum, but I will have somebody. I have been working. We've got a lot of guests coming up. It's having a reboot on the Lyceum, and along with a few other things physically in the church. Some of you may have seen it. We had the bereavement group, which we held every month, and that served a purpose of its time. That time is drawing to an end. So that's having a change and switching to an evening where we're having community nights. And these will be a mixture of, some will be about bereavement, and some will be about other issues that we face in life, living with people with dementia. But each month will have a focus.
Lovely.
So we can keep it on point. The first one of those is in a couple of weeks' time. That is an in-house, not online presentation. And that is for people who have been affected by loss through suicide. So again, we're talking about the community side. And, we can do things, but after a while, we have to look at it, we're objectively and go, is it doing what it was meant to do? Or does it need a change? Or does it need a revamp? Does it need whatever? And that's what we're doing. I don't know why I just went off down that line. There's a reason for it.
Saturday night you were talking about, but it then side skewed.
I know.
Well, I'm at Warsash all day next week, but if I get back in time, you never know. I might pop in as a last-minute guest. Who knows?
We've got Stevie Trolland is doing one of the evenings.
Fantastic.
I'm throwing that in there because Leslie said get that Scottish medium back, and I had to narrow it down out of 5. I think it's Stevie Trolland. If it's not, oh well, never mind.
You'll work your way around the others, I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Absolutely joy again to talk to you. Thank you, everybody, for being here again. No live service tomorrow, normal service, fingers crossed. If we don't have any more flooding, earthquakes, fire, famine, plague of locusts, I don't know what else is going to get
Let's just hope the barbecue doesn't do anything spectacular.
Yeah, I'm just going to run away.
Fire and flood.
I'm just going to pick up my cat and bugger off. Never to be seen again.
Oh, you go off to South America. I know you.
He was last seen walking down the road clutching his pussy.
Sorry, everyone, but this is good. This is good for the energy.
And
didn't
on that
realise
wonderful
the spirit guide was Mrs. Slocum, did you, everyone?
Yes. Thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful night, whatever you're doing. And yeah, thanks for being here and with us. So good night, everyone.
Night all.